Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of pharaohs and gold masks, but the Egypt of itchy tunics, mosquito bites, and cracked clay feet. You won't be scaling any pyramids tonight. No treasure hunting, no curses, no tomb. Just a long, sleepy day as a regular old farmer living along the Nile. Picture it. The first gray smudges of dawn filter through a lattice of woven reeds. You're not sleeping in a palace. You're curled up on a reed mat that's definitely older than your last 2 sandals combined. The scent of river silt and crushed lotus petals drifts through the doorway, mingled with something else, possibly goat. The rooster hasn't crowed yet because chickens are still centuries away from arriving, but the ibises are squawking like someone owes them money. You stretch, bones cracking like dry papyrus scrolls. That kink in your back from yesterday's ditch digging, still there. That itch under your linen kilt, still there too. You rub the sleep from your eyes and bump your toe on the doorframe. Again, this has happened every morning since Ramses was in diapers, and you're not about to stop now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is there. Always fun to know if you're drifting off in Detroit or blinking at sunrise in Brisbane. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The morning air is cool, a soft breeze threading through the doorless hut, but don't get used to it. In about 2 hours, it'll feel like you're walking through someone's exhale. You rise slowly, aware of every creak in your joints. Outside, your wife is already tending to the cooking fire, more smoke than flame. She nods, not quite greeting, not quite grumbling. You both know the day ahead will be long and full of sand. You step outside barefoot onto the packed earth. The horizon glows pale orange, the Nile shimmering like a lazy serpent. The frogs are still croaking from the reeds, probably gossiping about your household. To your left, the neighbor's donkey is already complaining. Its braying is a cross between a broken trumpet and your cousin when he gets dramatic about papyrus prices. Today is tax day, again. You trudge toward the edge of your field, where a scribe from the temple, skinny, sunburned, suspicious, waits with a stylus and a board. He doesn't greet you. He just clears his throat and raises one eyebrow, which is apparently the international sign for show me your grain tally. You sigh, trying to remember how many bushels you owe. It's always slightly more than what's fair, and slightly less than what will get you whipped. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptian taxation system was purely for grain, or if it extended into livestock, honey, and those suspicious bundles of onions your cousin swears are ceremonial. One thing's clear, you'll never outsmart the scribe. He makes a few marks on his board, purses his lips, and nods in that way that makes your stomach drop. You're not sure if he's satisfied or just fantasizing about more papyrus. Still, he doesn't confiscate anything today. You offer him a shriveled date from your pouch, which he declines with an expression that suggests you've just offered him dung. And speaking of dung, there's a fresh pile by your foot. You don't need to look to know it's from your neighbor's cow. That thing follows you like it's plotting something. As the sun inches higher, your stomach growls. But before we dive into breakfast, you take a moment, just a brief pause by the riverbank. You gaze out across the glinting surface of the Nile. A waterbird skims past, its wings flapping slow and heavy. The sound of insects rises with the heat, and somewhere a child laughs in the distance. Your day hasn't truly begun, but already you're dusty, underfed, and questioning your career choice. Not that you have any. The career paths available to you are farmer, dead, or very unlucky fisherman. Still, there's a strange piece to it all. You, the river, the sunrise, and the endless tasks waiting to be tackled. Some noble, some just sticky. A typical morning in a land of gods, mud, and bread that might break your teeth. You step carefully over a half-buried pot shard, duck under a low palm branch, and trudge toward the cooking fire where your breakfast waits. If waits is the right word for something that appears to have been burned, pecked by a goose, and then reconsidered. Today's breakfast, like every breakfast, is a crust of barley bread so gritty it might actually qualify as terrain. You chew it with the slow, resigned motion of someone who knows this bread was baked 3 days ago and might double as a weapon in an emergency. Still, it's food. Sort of. Next to it is a small clay jug of beer. Not the good kind, the daily thin kind brewed from leftover grain, sun-warmed, slightly sour, and absolutely essential to keep your bowels functional. It's less refreshing pint and more murky survival juice. You take a cautious sip and try to ignore the way the aftertaste clings to your gums like a guilt-ridden ibis. Flies circle your face with the energy of tax collectors. One lands on your lip. You swat. You miss. You sigh. This is life. While you're attempting to swallow the second bite of bread without losing a tooth, your oldest son shuffles past, sleep-matted hair sticking up like a papyrus bush struck by lightning. He grunts. You grunt back. That's the family version of good morning. You glance toward your tools, a chipped hoe, a wooden bucket with a stubborn leak, and your shaduf, an irrigation device that somehow manages to look both brilliant and entirely held together by hope. You'll be spending the next few hours working it like a puppeteer with back problems. But first, taxes. Yes, again. There's a second scribe down by the riverbank. He's younger, with a flair for dramatic sighing and heavily kohled eyes that suggest he spent all night copying temple receipts and contemplating his lack of abs. He greets you with a curt nod and a half-mumbled reminder that this month's grain count will determine whether you get extra rations or a visit from the whip-happy overseer. You produce a crumpled, scribbled note from last week, something that may or may not qualify as an inventory. The scribe squints, sniffs, licks a reed stylus, just for the drama. Historians still argue whether these records were truly used to ensure fairness or were simply a method for temple priests to hoard more onions. But in this moment, you're mostly worried about the onion that rolled under your neighbor's goat last night. Speaking of goats, one is now staring at you with the calm, malevolent wisdom of someone who has chewed your sandals before and will do it again. You know, on reflection, the goat might be the most intelligent member of the family. Anyway, you make it through the scribe's questioning without being fined, mostly because he's distracted by a passing girl carrying a jar of beer on her head with the grace of a Nile goddess. You thank the gods for teenage hormones and move on before he remembers to audit your fig stash. Now it's time to stretch, more out of necessity than choice. You raise your arms skyward, crack your shoulders, and feel 3 different joints pop in ways that would concern a modern chiropractor. You take a deep breath and the smell of damp earth, roasting barley, and something faintly sulfurous fills your lungs. That would be the dung heap, warming up for the day like a choir of small volcanoes. The sun is climbing, casting long golden stripes across the field. You squint, shading your eyes. The date palms sway gently in the breeze, and a flock of birds wheel overhead, calling out in voices that sound suspiciously like insults. Your muscles ache already, and all you've done so far is chew bad bread and make nervous eye contact with a goat. Still, you pause by the river, washing your hands and splashing your face. The water is cool, with the sweet mineral tang of silt and eternity. You wonder how many other hands, other faces, other generations have done this exact same thing, maybe even on this same worn stone. A dragonfly lands on your arm, vibrates there for a moment like a tiny, winged curse, and then flits away. You envy it. No taxes, no sore knees, no barley bread like plaster. From the edge of the village, a distant voice shouts your name. It's your cousin, and he wants help digging the irrigation trench. Again. You consider pretending you didn't hear him. You briefly entertain faking a divine vision. But alas, you are not that lucky, and your cousin is not that dumb. You down the last of your beer, sling the hoe over your shoulder, and shuffle toward another long morning. Somewhere in the reeds, the ibis shriek again, possibly laughing, possibly cursing. Either way, they sound exactly how you feel. The sun is higher now, tugging sweat from your skin like a tax collector pulls grain from granaries. You wipe your brow with the corner of your linen tunic, which is already stiff with yesterday's dust and this morning's irrigation spill. Ahead, your cousin is waving with exactly the amount of cheer that suggests he's not done any of the digging yet. You reach him at the edge of the canal trench. He's leaning on his shovel like it's a cane for moral support. You squint at the ditch. He's dug maybe a ceremonial scratch, about as deep as your average papyrus scroll is thick. You sigh, loudly. He smiles, unhelpfully. Historians still argue whether these local irrigation tasks were communal acts of duty or just cleverly disguised sibling torture. But here and now, it feels very personal. Time to haul out the shaduf, the ancient liver contraption that actually works. You plant your feet in the mud and begin the slow, rhythmic dip and lift of water. The counterweight creaks overhead like a wooden bird with asthma. You lift a bucket from the Nile, swing it toward the canal trench, and spill half the contents on your sandal. Again. By the 10th round, you've fallen into a kind of trance. Dip, swing, splash, grunt. The sun roasts the back of your neck and the bugs start arriving in organized waves, mosquitoes in formation, gnats in clusters, the occasional wasp performing solo reconnaissance. Your cousin finally picks up his end of the shovel and begins helping, which involves leaning on it while telling a wildly implausible story about how a crocodile followed him home once. You mutter that it probably just wanted its intelligence back. He throws a clump of mud at you. Brotherhood. Suddenly, something slithers across your foot. You leap back. It's not a snake, it's a fish. A squirming mud-slick fish that somehow ended up in the wrong trench. You both watch it flop around for a moment. Lunch, your cousin offers. You stare at it. It stares back. You both silently agree it looks like it died before the pyramids were built. You return to digging, shovelful after shovelful of heavy earth. The soil here is black and rich, soaked by the yearly flooding of the Nile, when the gods are in a good mood anyway. And when they're not, you get dust, or frogs, sometimes both. Between tasks, you rest the shovel on your shoulder and gaze out across the fields. Papyrus waves in lazy green ripples. Date palms nod as if they're sharing ancient secrets. In the distance, a cart creaks by, pulled by an ox who looks only marginally more miserable than its driver. The noise of daily life rises around you, women calling to one another from doorways, the ring of stone against stone as millstones grind grain, and the distant laughter of children who for now still believe growing up might be fun. The heat intensifies. Your scalp sweats beneath your fraying headcloth, and your arms gleam with a fine coating of water, dust, and ancient resignation. You take a break by sitting on a nearby rock that might be a former god or just a rock that thinks highly of itself. For refreshment, you pull a small clay jar from your belt pouch. Inside, pickled radish slices in vinegar and salt. Sharp, sour, and more invigorating than half the chance the temple priests hand out for fatigue. You chew slowly, savoring the sting. It distracts you from the smell of your cousin's armpit, which the breeze has just rudely reintroduced to your immediate atmosphere. Time passes. The ditch begins to resemble something functional. The water flows steadily now, your reward for sweat, patience, and an ancient design smarter than it looks. But now, just as you're congratulating yourself internally on your hard work, a goose appears. Not just any goose, that goose. The one from your neighbor's yard that has chased 4 children, 2 scribes, and 1 tax auditor this season alone. It's staring you down now with the cold, calculated gaze of an avian assassin. You freeze. The goose advances. You drop your shovel and bolt. Your cousin laughs so hard he drops his own tool, nearly into the canal. The goose stops at the edge, victorious, honking like a general who's just claimed new territory. You lean against a tree, panting. You might survive famine, floods, and temple politics, but not that goose. Definitely not twice in 1 week. Eventually, after the goose grows bored and wanders off to terrorize someone else's field, you recover your pride and your shovel. The sun is now directly overhead, transforming your surroundings into one giant, sandy skillet. The tools are hot to the touch, the dirt is dry again, and your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth like it's glued there. Time to head home for the midday meal. But you know what's coming first. A little more shaduf, a little more trench duty, a lot more sweat. Still, you feel something oddly like satisfaction, or maybe it's just early heat stroke. Either way, your morning is done. You survived the taxman, the trench, and the goose. For now. You drag your feet home, the midday sun radiating off every surface like the gods themselves are using a magnifying glass on the entire village. The dirt road is cracked and dry underfoot, save for the occasional suspiciously wet patch, probably left by a goat or a child or a goat disguised as a child. When you arrive, your wife is crouched by the hearth, stoking a small fire beneath the cooking stones. A ceramic pot sits atop them, bubbling gently. It smells like lentils, or possibly despair. Either way, it's hot and edible. Two qualities you're not in a position to be picky about. She grunts a greeting. You grunt back, setting your hoe down with theatrical exhaustion. No applause, just the sound of your second son trying to lasso a chicken with a reed cord. Lunch today is lentil stew with bits of dried fish, barley flatbread slightly blackened on one edge, and a fig. One whole fig. You eye it with the reverence of a sacred relic. Then you hide it behind your bread so the kids don't try to barter for it with handmade beetle jewelry. You sit in the shade beneath a lean-to made from palm fronds and questionable ambition. The breeze here is better, lifting the heat just enough to make you feel almost human again. The meal is served in rough clay bowls, chipped and mismatched, but still functional, like your knees. Your neighbor passes by and waves. You wave back, still chewing. He holds up a basket of onions like he's won a prize. You're not sure whether to be happy for him or suspicious. Historians still argue whether onions were purely culinary or held medicinal, even spiritual value in daily Egyptian life. All you know is that someone once told you they cure headaches, broken hearts, and goat bites. You remain unconvinced. As the food settles in your belly and the heat turns everything golden and fuzzy, you feel the pull of the nap, the sacred, socially acceptable, sun-high siesta. You stretch out on a woven mat beneath the palm lean-to. The sounds of the village hum in the background, grinding stones, murmured prayers, a baby wailing somewhere, a cat yowling somewhere else, possibly over the same spilled fish. You close your eyes. The world tilts gently, as if even the gods are drowsy. Just as sleep begins to slip around you like cool river water, a voice breaks through. "Where's the duck?" You open one eye. Your third child is staring at you with the kind of urgency normally reserved for temple fire drills. You groan and sit up slightly. "What duck?" "The duck I was playing with." You blink. "We don't have a duck." "Well," the child shrugs, "we did." You lie back down. Whatever happens to the duck, it's not your problem until you hear honking. You drift again. This time the dream is vague and slow. You are walking through a field of barley as tall as temple columns. Each stalk whispers something in a language you almost understand. A crocodile in a tunic offers you a drink. You accept. It tastes like beer and regret. Then, sting, ant, several ants, possibly a full diplomatic envoy of ants, expressing their displeasure with your presence. You sit up, brushing them off, grumbling. The sacred nap disrupted again. You walk back into the house to rinse your face. The inside is dark and cool compared to the yard, smelling of old oil, crushed herbs, and whatever someone spilled yesterday that nobody is admitting to. In a jar on a low shelf, you keep your family remedies: clove for toothaches, dried mint for belly aches, and a stone you were once told cures laziness if you sleep with it under your tongue. It didn't, but it makes a great paperweight. You rub some mint on your temples just because. Doesn't fix anything, feels vaguely productive. Outside the shadows are shifting, the sun beginning its slow arc down toward the palms again. You sigh, back to the fields soon, back to sweat and sand and shaduffs. But not just yet. You hear your cousin yelling from 2 houses down. Something about a runaway goose. Again, you smile. Maybe the duck found its calling. You return to your lean-to, not to nap this time, but just to sit, to breathe, to let the stillness settle around your shoulders like a linen cloak. For all the frustrations, the bread, the scribes, the heat, there's something timeless here, something that makes you feel not just alive but connected to everything. The river, the earth, the stars overhead you can't yet see, and if you squint into the glare on the water, maybe even a hint of tomorrow. You rise from your half-rest beneath the lean-to, just as the sun begins its descent from punishing to tolerable. The shadows of the date palms grow longer, stretching like lazy cats across the packed dirt. Time to tend to the animals, because somehow, despite living in a house with no door and walls made of mud, you are responsible for a collection of livestock that refuse to recognize your authority. First up, the geese. Yes, those same feathered nightmares with dagger beaks and eyes like tiny winged assassins. You approach cautiously, armed with a long stick and a brittle sense of dignity. The geese spot you. There's a pause, a moment of mutual judgment. One honks. It sounds like mockery. You raise your stick, not to hit, just to gesture, like a tired schoolteacher begging for cooperation. The geese scatter, sideways, not away, just far enough to make you chase them. And so you do. You chase them around the yard through a cloud of feathers and offended honks. The smallest goose, clearly some kind of delinquent, doubles back and nips your ankle. You swear under your breath and immediately apologize to the gods for your tone. Somewhere a scribe is probably writing down your blasphemy. Historians still argue whether Egyptian farmers actively bred geese for aggression or if the behavior was just a happy accident. You have strong, bruised opinions on the matter. Next, the cows. You head to the pen where your two precious, moody cows await. One is chewing cud with the attitude of a noblewoman forced to attend a village play. The other is staring into space, clearly plotting something existential. You bring over some fodder, dried grasses, a handful of leftover beet pulp, and a stalk of papyrus. Don't tell the scribes. They snort approvingly. One licks your elbow. You pretend not to mind. Milking time. You squat on a small, three-legged stool that wobbles dangerously and begin the milking process. Slow, steady, and deeply personal. The cow, to her credit, stands still, until she doesn't. One flick of her tail and you're sporting a fresh stripe of dung across your shoulder. Again, you exhale through your nose, channel your inner priest, and remind yourself that the cow doesn't know she's being rude. She probably thinks you enjoy her offerings. Meanwhile, your youngest child appears with a basket and an urgent expression. He wants you to guess what he found in the storage pit. You brace yourself. Scorpion? Moldy bread? Another duck? Nope. Just your missing sandal from 3 days ago. Half chewed, possibly haunted. You thank him, toss it in the to-be-burned pile, and resume your duties. Overhead, the sky shifts from searing blue to honeyed gold. Birds wheel lazily in the air, cawing as if recounting your day's humiliations to each other. From across the fields, you hear someone yelling about a donkey stuck in the reeds. Again, you resist the urge to go help. That's not your donkey. Not this time. Let someone else be the village hero today. Instead, you do one last check on the goats. They are, as usual, plotting something. One has climbed onto a roof. Another is chewing a piece of linen that used to be a curtain. The smallest one is trying to walk backwards in a circle. You don't ask why, you've learned not to. You herd them back into their pen with bribes of dried dates and mild threats. They cooperate, eventually, mostly. One kicks over a jar on the way in. It contained fermented fish paste. Your nose immediately regrets being born. You rinse your hands at the clay basin near the back of your house, using water that's only slightly warmer than your own body. A bar of natron soap sits nearby, scratchy but effective. It leaves your skin clean and vaguely chalky, as if you've just shaken hands with a limestone statue. Your wife calls from the kitchen. Dinner preparations have begun. You nod, then take one last walk around the edge of your yard. The fields glow under the golden light. The Nile glistens like a ribbon of polished copper, and the breeze has cooled just enough to lift the edges of your tunic. It's quiet, except for the distant bleat of a goat and the constant whisper of insects talking about you behind your back. You sit on a stone near the fence and breathe, not deeply, just enough. This is your domain, part field, part zoo, part cosmic joke, but it's yours. The afternoon fades, slipping quietly into that hour where everything softens, the light, the breeze, even the sounds. You stand up from your thinking stone by the fence and wander back toward the house, drawn by the unmistakable scent of roasted garlic and something smoky. Smoke usually means two things, dinner or disaster. You're hoping for the former, but you walk a little faster just in case. As you approach, you see your wife hunched over the mud brick oven, fanning flames with a piece of broken palm frond. The smoke curls lazily around her, catching the light like incense. She's baking bread, and by some miracle, hasn't yet burned the roof of the oven, or her patience. You offer to help, and she hands you a ball of dough that sticks to your fingers like betrayal. You're not the best baker, you know it, she knows it, the dough knows it, but she lets you try anyway, which is the ancient Egyptian version of love. Together, you flatten the dough on a hot stone, sprinkle it with cumin and dried coriander, and slide it into the oven. You use a paddle carved from acacia wood and curses. Dinner tonight is going to be the usual. Lentils again, bread, hopefully not scorched, pickled radish if any are left after lunch, and a few preserved olives someone traded for a bar of soap and a story. You sneak a fig from the storage jar when no one is looking. It's slightly overripe and oozes like a secret. You wipe the juice off your chin before a child notices and demands a bite, which means all of it. You gather the family under the shelter near the house. Everyone sits cross-legged or sprawled on woven mats, elbowing for space, squabbling over whose fig is bigger, and eyeing the bread with a reverence normally reserved for the gods. The conversation flows slowly, snippets about the neighbor's sick ox, rumors of a new tax on fish paste, and a vague report that someone saw a jackal walking upright near the edge of the village. You make a mental note not to investigate that after dark. Historians still argue whether the mud ovens used in these homes were standardized models from temple plans or just the result of centuries of trial, error, and good gossip. Yours leans to the left and belches like a tired crocodile, but it bakes evenly. That's all that matters. As the sun dips below the horizon, the Nile turns a deep bronze, then indigo. You watch it shimmer from the edge of your yard, chewing a bite of bread that's surprisingly good, crispy on the edges, soft in the middle. You glance sideways at your wife. She raises an eyebrow. You nod solemnly. She smirks. Another ancient Egyptian love language. One of your sons brings out a pot of warm beer. It's thicker now, slightly sweet, and blessedly cold. It was sitting in the shade of a water jar all afternoon. You sip it slowly, savoring the yeasty comfort. A mild breeze ruffles the leaves above your head, and for a brief moment, everything is just quiet. A chorus of frogs begins somewhere near the canal. They sing their scratchy lullaby as if auditioning for Ra himself. You stretch your legs out, sigh, and take another bite. Then someone starts telling a story. It's your brother-in-law. He's not the best storyteller. He tends to forget plot points, mix up names, and include unnecessary tangents about fishing. But he's enthusiastic, and tonight, that's enough. He launches into a tale about a crocodile that lived in a granary for 7 days and taught someone how to dance. You have questions. You don't ask them. You chew. You listen. You let the story meander like the Nile in flood season. You contribute a tale of your own, how a runaway goat once led you to a patch of wild honey which you claim is true. No one believes you, but that's part of the ritual. Truth is flexible. What matters is the telling, the laughter, the flicker of lamplight. The flicker of lamplight on smiling faces. The bread is almost gone. The beer jug is half empty. The stars are slowly stitching themselves across the sky. A bat swoops overhead, silent and fast, chasing a mosquito who probably bit you 5 times today. A child asks about the stars, what they are, why they sparkle, why they never fall. You smile and begin to answer, not with facts, with a story. Because tonight isn't about farming or digging or running from geese. Tonight is for bread and quiet tales and the brief, perfect peace of knowing that for this small slice of time, all is well in your little corner of the world. The fire has burned down to embers, warm and flickering under the clay oven's belly. The shadows grow thick now, stretching out long fingers across the yard, hugging the reed fence and nestling under the sleeping goats. It's the kind of night where sound travels further and thoughts linger longer. After the last crumb of bread is stolen by your youngest, he's faster than he looks. You rise slowly, joints protesting in harmony. There's still one last stop you must make before surrendering to sleep, the temple. Not for worship necessarily, but for taxes. Again, yes, again. The temple in its infinite wisdom seems to run on grain, offerings, and a deeply personal understanding of guilt. You wrap your old linen shawl around your shoulders and head into the village streets, which are more like cooperative dirt paths, interrupted by livestock. The stars overhead flicker through the palms. You count them not because you can, but because you always do. There's something comforting about celestial routines. They never ask for a goat. The temple looms ahead, built from stone, its edges soft in the darkness. 2 oil lamps flicker near the entrance, casting light across the carved walls. Gods peer down from the reliefs, falcon-headed, lion-headed, some just unnervingly bird-like. They always seem to be watching you a little too closely. You nod respectfully, just in case. Inside, the air is cooler. A priest sits behind a low table, surrounded by jars, ledgers, and what you suspect might be the same goose from earlier. It watches you from the shadows, You adjust your shawl, you present your small bundle, dried dates, a wedge of barley cake, and a single carved bead. It's what you can offer tonight. The priest nods, barely glancing at it, and then mumbles a few lines of formal thanks to the gods. It sounds like he's half asleep, or halfway through memorizing a new tax form. On a side shelf, you spot a few scrolls, healing spells, hymnals, and what might be a recipe for something called spleen soup. You make a mental note to never ask what's in that. Historians still argue whether these temples operated more as spiritual centers or proto-bureaucratic government buildings. From where you're standing, it's a bit of both. A place to confess, to pay, and to hope the gods don't notice your missing goat. The priest offers you a small token for your offering, a tiny amulet shaped like a lotus bud, supposed to protect you from bad dreams, and if you squint at it sideways, possibly from bad weather. You accept it with quiet gratitude and tuck it into your pouch. You linger for a moment in the temple courtyard, looking up at the constellations. There's the hippo, the crocodile, the river of stars. They've been watching over farmers like you for thousands of years. Silent, judgmental, occasionally poetic. You head home through the sleeping village. Dogs yip in the distance. Somewhere, a baby wails for the second time this evening. It's probably dreaming about geese. At the edge of your yard, you nearly trip over a clay jar someone left out. Possibly you, possibly the goat. You mutter a curse, then remember you're holding a temple amulet and immediately apologize. Inside the house, your children are snoring in a pile of limbs and dreams, each with their own smudged blanket and occasionally someone else's elbow in their face. You step over them like a tired cat, careful not to wake the whole pile. You light a small oil lamp and sit by it, inspecting your cracked heels and dirt-embedded fingernails. Your life is carved in calluses, shaded in sunburn, and dusted in flour. It's not glorious, but it's full. A knock, you pause, then sigh. It's your neighbor, holding a basket and a sheepish smile. He's brought more onions. Why? You don't know. Maybe he's apologizing for his goose. Maybe it's a bribe to borrow your oven. Maybe he just really likes onions. You nod, take the basket, and gesture to the jar of mint tea you forgot you brewed earlier. You pour him a cup. He sips. You sit together in silence. Sometimes that's all the neighborliness you need. You both watch the lamp flicker and sputter, listen to the frogs, and sip in time with the crickets. No grand speeches, no moral lessons, just two dusty men sitting under the stars, too tired to lie and too full to move. Eventually, he nods, thanks you with the world's slowest wink, and vanishes into the night. You lean back, eyes heavy, legs buzzing from the day's labor. Tomorrow there will be more ditches, more dough, more scribes with opinions. But tonight, you've paid your dues. You've dodged your goose. You've kept your fig. That's a win. You lie down on your mat, bones creaking like the ropes of an old barge. The house is quiet now, if you don't count the faint snoring of your cousin, who somehow ended up sleeping just inside your doorway with no explanation. You nudge him gently with your foot. He doesn't budge. You sigh and throw a cloth over him so at least he looks like he belongs there. But of course, sleep doesn't come right away. Your body may be ready, aching, stretched, fed, but your mind still turns like a potter's wheel. You roll onto your side, staring at the flickering shadows cast by the oil lamp. They dance on the wall like half-formed gods trying to remember their lines. Maybe it's the moonlight peeking through the reed curtain, or the leftover adrenaline from that goose chase, or the quiet worry that you might have miscounted your grain sacks, and tomorrow the scribe will show up with that look. That frown and that stylus and that ah yes, the accidental misreporting look face. So you give in, you get up just for a moment. Outside, the night air greets you like an old friend with cold hands, crisp, still smelling faintly of mint and mud brick. You walk barefoot to the edge of the property, where the palm trees sway gently and the stars sparkle in full display. No torches, no market noise, no goose-related screaming, just space. You sit under your favorite tree. The bark is rough but familiar. The ants, thankfully, are elsewhere. From here you can see the shimmer of the Nile in the distance, smooth and dark like black glass. Somewhere downriver, fishermen are still working by torchlight, their tiny boats bobbing on the water, casting long ripples that vanish before they reach you. You remember being young, racing your brothers to the canal, slipping in mud, diving in with clothes on because you didn't care. Your mother scolding you, then laughing. The water was always warm, always forgiving. Back then, you didn't think about taxes or trench alignment or whether your roof would hold through the next rainy season. You think about that now. A frog croaks loudly, startling you. You squint into the reeds, half expecting to see glowing eyes, but it's just a toad with the confidence of royalty. Historians still argue whether frogs were seen as omens of fertility or simply as part of the background chorus of Egyptian life. You lean toward divine comedians, personally. Somewhere in the village, a lute plays softly, probably that teenager who insists he'll be a court musician one day, despite being tone-deaf and cursed with short fingers. Still, it's nice, gentle plucking, out of tune but heartfelt. You lie back in the dirt, arms behind your head. The stars above are so clear you can almost draw lines between them. There's the shape of a crocodile. There's the shape of your old ox, the one that ran into a granary door and was never quite right afterward. And over there's the bark of Ra, sailing through the underworld, fighting off serpents, while people like you lie in the dust, wondering if they overcooked the lentils. You close your eyes for a moment, then a whisper, sand shifting nearby. You open one eye. Your oldest son stands there, holding a cup of water and blinking in the moonlight. "You forgot this," he mumbles, handing it to you. "Mama said if you get sick, she's blaming me." You take it, cool, clean from the sealed jar by the back wall. A rare treat. You nod, and he flops down beside you, legs stretched out, eyes on the stars. "Are those really gods?" he asks. You pause. "Maybe," you say. "Or maybe they're just bored ancestors with a good view." He grins. You sit together for a while, not speaking, just watching the sky perform. He eventually falls asleep, head on your arm, breathing steady and warm. You don't move. Not yet. Tomorrow he'll carry water, he'll learn the shadoof, he'll curse the goats, but tonight, he's just a boy staring at gods. You look at the stars one more time. And then with effort you rise, lift him gently onto your back, and walk home. The house is still. Inside, the oil lamp has burned low, casting golden halos on the ceiling. You place your son gently on the mat, cover him with a cloth, and lie down again. This time, you don't fight sleep. This time it comes softly. You wake up to a quiet argument happening somewhere nearby. Muffled voices, hurried footsteps, the soft thud of something being dropped in dry dirt. You blink into the early light, the kind of pale gold that tells you dawn is close, but hasn't quite shaken off the night. You rise slowly, untangling your legs from a sleeping child and your cousin's elbow, which somehow made it across the entire room during the night. You slip outside, rubbing your eyes. At the edge of the field stands your brother and your cousin, again, with matching scowls and arms folded. Between them lies the cause of today's trouble, a freshly collapsed section of the irrigation ditch. The water is pooling where it shouldn't, soaking the base of your neighbor's storage hut and, more importantly, flooding your onions. You approach, still barefoot and half asleep. They look at you like you're supposed to fix this with divine wisdom and a handful of mud. You sigh, deeply. "Did anyone tell the priest?" you ask. "No," your cousin says. "I thought you did." Your brother gestures at the ditch. It's clearly his section. Look at the slope. You squint at the mudslide like it's a sacred text. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian farming families shared equal responsibility for irrigation or whether ditch feuds were the source of generations of passive-aggressive bread gifts. Here's what's certain. Your cousin forgot to patch his wall. Your brother forgot to check the water level. And you, well, you're the one with onions doing backstrokes. The three of you bicker quietly so as not to wake the rest of the village. The goat, however, is already awake and watching like it's enjoying the drama. You take the lead as usual. You fetch some reeds and a roll of coarse linen, patch the worst of the breach, and pack the trench wall with mud and straw. Your cousin finally joins in, muttering apologies that sound more like complaints. Your brother helps too, but only after you throw a clump of wet earth at his tunic. He throws one back. Somehow this is what passes for team bonding. By mid-morning the flow is steady again. The onions are sulking but alive. You wash your hands in a basin and marvel at how this day, which started with stars and silence, is now soaked in mud and minor betrayal. Your wife appears at the fence holding a bowl of cucumber slices marinated in vinegar and herbs. "A peace offering?" or a silent reminder that you forgot to bring the chickens in last night. Either way, you accept. You eat standing up, gazing out over the fields now shimmering under the sun. The worst of the crisis is over, for now. Then someone screams. A high-pitched shriek, followed by a string of words not suitable for temple walls. You and the others bolt toward the source, which, unsurprisingly, is your neighbor's house. The door is ajar. The yard is a mess. There are onions everywhere. Also the goose, the same goose, the legendary feathered menace. It stands atop a clay jar, wings spread, beak open in defiance, as if declaring itself ruler of all it surveys. A child is crying. An older man is waving a stick wildly and missing every time. A chicken flutters past, offended. You pause. Consider your options. Then sigh again. Your shoulders slump in that particular way only ancient farmers understand. The weight of knowing that even with gods and grain and geometry, chaos will always be a goose with an agenda. You and your cousin corner the bird, carefully. You've learned. It charges once, twice. Your brother ducks behind a storage jar. Someone throws a shoe. Eventually, through a combination of intimidation, flailing, and raw fatigue, the goose flees. It honks all the way down the path like it's filing a complaint. Silence falls. You look at your neighbor, whose onions are now spread across 3 households and half a goat. He looks at you. You both start laughing. The tired, wheezy, we don't get paid enough for this kind. After the laughter fades, you return home. It's still mid-morning, and you've already fought with family, negotiated with water, and survived another goose encounter. You're not sure what the gods planned for you today, but you suspect you've already used up your portion of excitement. You check on your tools, still damp, still dull. You lean them against the wall and sit under the awning, letting your bare feet dangle off the ledge. A fly lands on your arm. You let it stay. There is peace again, not perfection, just peace. And you'll take it. You sit beneath the awning, letting the last of the morning sun drift across your face in gentle warmth, the kind that no longer burns but blesses. Your stomach rumbles faintly, not out of hunger, but routine. It knows it's nearly time for the evening bake. And like everything in your life, that process starts not with bread, but with smoke. The mud oven puffs its usual warning sighs as your wife pokes it with a long-handled paddle, testing the temperature. The fire inside glows like an angry eye. It spits heat in slow, rhythmic breaths. You know this oven well. It's older than your youngest child, patched and repatched so many times it looks like a lumpy clay turtle that wandered too close to a lightning strike. Your role in this process is humble but essential. Fetch water, gather dried dung cakes for fuel, and guard the cooling loaves from curious goats. The goat, of course, is already pretending it wasn't just licking the flour jar. Tonight's dinner is simple. A barley and lentil stew with herbs picked fresh from the edge of the irrigation trench, flatbread hot from the oven, and if the gods are in a generous mood, a dollop of leftover honey from last week's trade with the beekeeper. You watch your wife work the dough. Her hands move with the certainty of years, pressing, folding, stretching, then patting it flat with the speed and accuracy of a trained priest slapping a drum. Each round loaf is like a small moon. They lie soft and pale, resting on a wooden plank before their descent into the oven. As the first loaf bakes, the smell of browning crust and toasted grain fills the yard. You breathe it in deeply, ignoring the faint trace of goose somewhere in the background. Bread is sacred. Bread is life. Bread is also the only thing that keeps the children from eating the walls. Historians still argue whether these early ovens were more influenced by Nubian methods or entirely homegrown innovations of the Nile Valley. But what no one argues is that without them, half of Egypt would have starved, or worse, resorted to raw lentils. You turn the paddle carefully, removing a fresh loaf and flipping it with a practiced flick. It's perfect. The underside is crisp and mottled with dark marks, the top golden and still puffing steam. You want to tear into it right there, but you wait. Barely. As the last few loaves bake, your wife hands you a bowl of cool water and a few sprigs of mint. You chew them slowly, savoring the sharp green flavor, your tongue grateful for something that isn't sand or regret. One by one, the family gathers, your cousin now properly washed and wearing a tunic that might actually be his, your sons dusty and loud, your daughters quieter but twice as observant. Everyone crowds under the shelter, bowls in hand. eyes on the bread like it's treasure. Dinner begins with the breaking of a loaf. There's no ceremony, just the sudden sound of crust cracking and a dozen hands reaching. The stew is thick and rich tonight. It's filled with chickpeas and chopped onion, seasoned with garlic and cumin. It's not much, but it's enough. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. Someone passes you a fig. Someone else spills a bowl. A child drops half a loaf and pretends not to see the goat snatch it up. You sip beer from a shared jar, lukewarm now but sweetened with dates and surprisingly smooth. You lean back on one hand, gaze at the purple-streaked sky, and sigh with your whole body. This is as good as it gets. Conversation drifts lazily around the group. Your brother-in-law tells another questionable tale, this time about a dream in which Anubis offered him a job as an embalmer, but only if he could pass a riddle involving dates and ducks. You offer a sarcastic comment about how Anubis must have been desperate. Laughter bubbles up like a spring. One of the children asks what happens to the sun when it disappears. You explain, with your best storyteller voice, that Ra sails across the sky by day and through the underworld by night, fighting off serpents and bringing light to the unseen world. You add just enough drama to earn wide eyes and gasps. Then your wife chimes in with her version, more grounded, more practical, involving a dusty sun god who likes his naps and needs convincing each morning to rise. You both exchange a glance. Your versions always differ, but neither of you ever corrects the other. That's part of the game. The breeze picks up, lamps are lit, the smell of burnt wood, stew, and baked bread still hangs in the air like a blessing. You scrape your bowl with the last bit of bread and lean back again, full in body and spirit. There's no rush. The stars are coming out one by one. Children are already yawning. The goat, miraculously, is not currently chewing anything valuable. And for just a moment, everything is still. You think about tomorrow, about the irrigation wall that still needs reinforcing, about the scribe who will no doubt stop by just to check, about the creeping worry that the Nile may not flood as generously this year. But those are worries for later. Right now there's warmth and family and the soft whisper of wind through palm fronds, and your belly is full of lentils and your nose is full of bread. Let the goose try again tomorrow. Tonight, you are at peace. The last traces of sunlight slip behind the western dunes, and the village sinks into a warm, golden hush. You rise slowly, brushing crumbs from your lap, and stretch your back with the satisfying pop of overworked joints agreeing to one more round. Dinner's done. The goat is finally asleep, or at least pretending. The fire has gone from roaring heat to a gentle amber glow, licking the stones with the rhythm of a lazy heartbeat. This is the hour for stories. The family gathers again, this time without bowls, without tasks, just blankets, tired limbs, and that ancient unspoken contract. Someone will speak, and the rest will listen. You settle onto a mat and glance up. The stars are out now, thick and blinking and endless. The Milky Way runs like a divine river above your home, mirroring the Nile below. The children look upward in reverent silence, and you know it's time. So, you begin, voice low and slow, you ever wonder where Ra goes at night? They nod, eagerly, sleepily. The youngest one pulls her blanket tighter, eyes wide as a frog's. You let the pause linger, long enough for tension to grow like rising bread. He sails through the duat, you say, the underworld, on a great solar boat made of firewood and lion roars. This is your favorite story. It never gets old. He rides with his crew, gods, serpents, warriors of light, battling monsters in the darkness. His greatest enemy? Apep, the chaos serpent, a beast so long it could wrap around the world twice and still have enough tail left to knock over a pyramid. The children gasp. Even your cousin, who's heard this story 147 times, leans in. You continue, describing the 12 gates of the night, the shrines guarded by time-eating beetles, the rivers of ink where shadows swim. The moon watches from above, a quiet sentinel. You improvise a little. Ra almost losing his paddle, Thoth showing up with a sarcastic riddle, Bastet slicing Apep's tail while purring. But that's part of the fun. The gods aren't always grand. Sometimes they're ridiculous, just like people. Historians still argue whether these nightly journeys were metaphor, ritual, or pure myth. But as you speak, and the fire cracks like thunder in miniature, none of that matters. You feel the tale unfolding like a tapestry. You feel it being believed. Eventually, Ra wins, as he always does. Apep is pushed back into his cave of spit and shadow, and the sky begins to lighten. The sun is reborn. The world continues. The children exhale as if they've just survived the journey themselves. Your wife adds a comment from her seat near the coals. Let's hope he's feeling strong tomorrow. We still have to finish weeding the upper fields. The group chuckles softly, and then it's their turn. Your eldest son begins his own story, one that seems to be about a talking fish and a misguided love spell gone wrong. Your neighbor's daughter jumps in to embellish with a goat-related subplot. Someone adds a chicken with a secret identity. It spirals into a chaotic mess of laughter, gasps, and exaggerated reenactments. Even your normally stoic brother-in-law gets caught up in the drama, assigning characters, making sound effects, and playing the part of a seductive turnip. It's not history, it's not myth, it's not even coherent, if you're being honest. But it's family, it's memory in the making. The stories wind down, the laughter softens, someone yawns loudly, someone else yawns in response. A universal contagion. You gaze back up at the stars. They're higher now, brighter somehow. The Nile glows faintly in the distance, catching the light like a mirror for the gods. Crickets chirp from the edges of the reeds. The occasional rustle of a palm leaf is the only other sound. This is your favorite time of day. The chores are done. The scribe is asleep. The goose is, hopefully, far away. And the world feels just quiet enough for you to hear your own heartbeat. Your daughter, half asleep beside you, mumbles, "Do you think the stars watch us the way we watch them?" You pause. Smile. "Maybe," you whisper. "Or maybe they're just listening to our stories." She closes her eyes. The others do too. And you sit there a little longer, a silent guardian in the night, beneath a sky that has seen it all before and will see it again. The stars wheel gently overhead, and the fire has died to glowing coals. You tiptoe away from the huddle of sleeping children, stepping over limbs like a practiced dancer. A snore erupts from your cousin, loud enough to scare off birds in the next province, but the kids don't stir. You envy that sleep. Deep, dreamless, goat-free. But something tugs at you, restlessness, curiosity, or perhaps just a full bladder. You make your way out to the edge of the field again, passing under palm trees, whispering secrets to each other. The sky is ink black now, dotted with stars too numerous to count. You've tried, made it to 67 once before you sneezed and had to start over. You sit again at your usual rock, worn smooth by years of being leaned on, cried against, and on one awkward afternoon, used to escape a very angry duck. The air tonight carries the scent of wet soil, ash, and faint mint. You breathe it in slowly, your thoughts drifting like reed boats. The stars feel closer tonight. You stare up and try to trace familiar shapes. The Eye of Horus constellation, bright and watchful. The crocodile, whose mouth seems to hover over your neighbor's hut. And the river goddess, always a little lopsided but comforting in her persistence. Historians still argue whether these constellations were mapped intentionally by ancient Egyptian farmers or simply evolved through generations of imagination. But from where you sit, it feels like they were placed just for you. Silent stories etched across the dark. You think back on a rumor you heard years ago, that the stars aren't just lights in the sky, but souls. That each one is an ancestor watching, whispering, occasionally sighing when you forget to wash your hands before dinner. You chuckle softly. You wonder which one is your grandmother. Probably that small, twitchy star near the horizon. She was never one to stay still. A breeze stirs the edge of your tunic. You close your eyes just for a moment. The world quiets around you, but your mind, like always, begins to wander. You remember the priest once said the gods built the stars as a map to guide lost souls home. Not sailors, not traders, just regular people like you. People who get up, dig trenches, fight with geese, and tell bedtime stories. You look up again. Try to follow the map. But you see no road, no destination. Only more stars, which is probably the point. Back near the house, you hear the soft clink of clay. Your wife moving jars, probably checking to see if the lentils will stretch for tomorrow. She's always thinking ahead. You, on the other hand, are still wondering whether the goat really did learn to open the storage door. The silence is broken by a soft rustling nearby. You freeze. It's just a fox, thin, orange-furred, trotting past like it owns the place. You nod to it. It nods back, or maybe just blinks, and continues on its way. In Egyptian myth, foxes are tricky but wise. like your cousin minus the wisdom. You stay seated a little longer. The moon is out now, half full and casting silver light across the field. The reeds sway gently, their rustling soft as breath. A frog croaks once, then again. Then 5 more join in, forming a choir of swamp philosophers. You consider all you've done today, hauled water, chased poultry, argued about mud, told a story, fixed a leak, ate your weight in lentils. Not glamorous, not remembered by history, but there's something noble in it. Quietly noble, like cleaning your tools without being asked, or sharing the last fig with someone who only pretends they're not still hungry. You run your fingers through the dirt. Cool, powdery, comforting. This land, your land, isn't just where you work, it's part of you. It holds your footprints, your mistakes, your laughter, and maybe one day it'll hold your bones. That thought doesn't scare you, it feels right, like a full circle. You stand slowly, brushing off your hands. The night is deep now. The stars are fading slightly as the first hint of blue sneaks into the eastern sky. Time to return, to your mat, to your family, to dreams that may or may not involve fish with opinions. You take one last look at the stars and whisper, "Thanks for watching." Morning comes slowly, not with the sudden burst of light, but with a gentle gray that seeps into the edges of everything. The house is still. Your body stirs before your eyes open. Legs heavy, back stiff, fingers curled like dried reeds. You feel the familiar tingle in your knees and the equally familiar weight in your stomach that says, another day, another goat-related crisis. You rise, quietly, step over the children who resemble a pile of rags left to dream. Your wife is already outside. Of course she is, grinding barley with a stone that has worn its shape into her palms. You start the day with a rinse of your face from a water jar left near the door. It's colder than expected and wakes you faster than a temple bell. You stretch, yawn, and consider what aches today. The answer is everything, but mostly your pride. That goose really did get the best of you. You're not due in the fields just yet, so you take a small side quest, trade. You grab a satchel and a handful of dried onions, which, depending on the day, might be worth a scroll, a blessing, or half a cucumber. You walk toward the marketplace. The path is familiar. Hard-packed dirt, scattered pebbles, flattened footprints of people you know. People you know better by the way they walk than by their names. A donkey brays in the distance, and a cart rolls past, creaking under the weight of pots and dusty hopes. The market hums with early activity, traders calling out their wares, women examining dates with suspicion. Suspicion of professional jewelers and the occasional child trying to swap a beetle for a honey stick. You nod to the herb seller, wave at the weaver who always has straw in his beard, and finally reach your destination, the scribe. He sits under a shade cloth made of fraying linen and papyrus, surrounded by scrolls, jars of ink, and an aura of mild disapproval. You offer him your onions. He raises an eyebrow. You again? You nod. Me, again. He inspects the onions like they're potential criminals. You try not to take it personally. Eventually, he gestures toward a side scroll. For the spleen, he says. Maybe also for hiccups. Depends on the moon. You take the scroll. The script is neat. Temple-trained hands. You recognize some of the symbols. Lettuce, beer, and frog. That can't be right. Then again, historians still argue whether early Egyptian medical scrolls were more science, magic, or just optimistic guesses written in fancy ink. You thank him and tuck the scroll into your belt. On your way out, you stop by the perfume seller. Not for perfume, just for a sniff. The jar of myrrh and crushed lilies is enough to make your nostrils think your life is fancier than it is. You also trade a few extra onions for a chunk of natron soap and a piece of dried fig. Luxury, by your standards. Walking back through the village, you pause to watch 2 boys trying to build a boat from palm fronds. It's going poorly. You remember doing the same when you were their age. You don't tell them it won't float. You just enjoy the memory. Back home, your wife eyes the scroll. Your sons eye the soap, and the goat eyes the fig. You divide the spoils with a fairness known only to parents of many. Everyone gets a sniff of the fig and no complaints. You read the scroll aloud, just to see what it says. Turns out it's mostly about digestion, sleep, and something about releasing wind through respectful herbs. The children giggle. You pretend you're above it. You're not. You tuck the scroll away. You might try the recipe, or burn it the next time someone brings you fish paste. The rest of the morning is spent in quiet tasks, mending a basket, brushing debris from the oven, convincing your youngest that eating sand doesn't build character. You sharpen a hoe with a stone so worn down it now resembles a sad potato. Then the neighbor stops by. He's holding a bundle of lettuce and an expression that says, "I have news and I want to tell it dramatically." You invite him in. Turns out, someone in the next village claimed to be healed by drinking lettuce juice mixed with fermented fig wine and whispering to a scarab. You raise an eyebrow. Your wife sighs. Your cousin offers to try it if it means a break from irrigation. You all sit around for a while debating it. Not seriously, just enough to keep the brain loose. The children are outside, making up songs about Ra's boat sinking and having to paddle with an oar made of papyrus. You don't correct them. If Ra ever did sink, he probably would have laughed. Eventually the neighbor leaves. Your wife returns to her lentils. You look at the scroll again. For a brief, foolish moment, you consider trying the remedy. But instead, you eat the last of the fig and watch the sun inch up the sky. It's another ordinary day in the kingdom of sand, stories, and speculative medicine. And honestly, you wouldn't trade it. The heat is back in full force, pressing down from above like the hand of a sun god who forgot his sunscreen. You pull your headcloth tighter, squinting toward the fields where the shimmer of the air makes the palms look like they're dancing. Or melting. Possibly both. You're on your way to the northern plot today, a section of land closer to the canal but further from shade. It's planting season again, which means sore backs, dusty hands, and arguments about how straight a furrow should be. You carry a bundle of seeds tucked into a linen pouch at your hip, barley, lentils, maybe some chickpeas if your cousin didn't accidentally spill them last night. You pause at the water's edge and drink from a cup made of palm fiber. It tastes like the Nile, cool, gritty, a little wild. Somewhere nearby, an egret watches you with the slow, judgmental gaze of someone who has never paid taxes. You begin sowing the field, walking backward in careful steps, scattering the seeds like blessings or apologies. A child joins you to help, your middle son, barefoot and full of questions. His hands are quick, though, and you smile despite the sweat. Then you hear it, a low murmur rising through the air like a warning on the wind. You glance up. At the far edge of the village, a crowd is gathering. Not in celebration, not for a birth. It's something else. You hurry over, your son trailing behind. It takes only moments to piece it together. The canal has gone dry. Not all of it, just one fork. But that fork feeds the northern fields. Your fields. Panic simmers in the air. Your neighbor swears he saw it coming. Another man blames a blockage. Someone suggests it's divine punishment. You wonder quietly if it's just a rock. The priests arrive, they consult a small tablet, whisper among themselves, and eventually declare that sacrifices and repairs must be made. Mostly repairs. Sacrifices are more expensive. You volunteer to go upriver with a team to investigate. The walk is long, hotter than a kiln, and filled with muttered speculation. One man insists the crocodiles are behind it. Another believes the canal spirit is angry about all the goose chasing. You remain silent, saving your energy for whatever lies ahead. At the split in the waterway, the problem reveals itself plainly. The canal is clogged with silt, reeds, and a sunken cart. You and the others get to work. You haul mud, drag reeds, argue over leverage, and sweat so thoroughly it feels like you're dissolving. The sun is relentless, but so are you. This land is stubborn, and you have to match it. Historians still argue whether these community repair efforts were formal duty, religious obligation, or just the result of collective desperation. Today, it's all three. Hours pass. Finally, the blockage gives way. A roar of water rushes through, muddy and triumphant, sweeping down the channel like an impatient god. You cheer with the others, exhausted, filthy, victorious. As you walk back to the village, your arms feel like wet rope. Your knees don't bend so much as creak, but your heart is lighter. You've saved the crops, for now. Back home, your wife hands you a rag and a look that says, "What did you break this time?" You grin and wipe your face. She softens. Dinner that night is quiet, subdued. Everyone's a little sunburned, a little sore, but the bread is good, the stew hearty, and the children's laughter feels brighter somehow, like a reward. You lean back after the meal, watching the lamplight flicker on the walls. A bowl of water waits for you to wash the day away. You dip your hands in, watching the ripples spread. You think about the seasons, how sometimes the Nile floods too much, sometimes not at all. How life here is a tightrope walk between abundance and scarcity. And how, despite all of it, the village endures. You endure, even when the water dries up, even when the goats eat your tunic, even when the scribes invent new taxes just to stay entertained. Because this land is yours. These people are yours. This strange, beautiful, ridiculous life is yours. And somehow that's enough. The stars return as they always do, steady, silent, just a little smug. You lie back on your mat, the coolness of the evening finally soaking into your skin. The work is done. The canal flows again. The fields are saved, at least until the next thing goes wrong, which it will, but not tonight. Tonight you are still. Your wife is already asleep beside you, her breath soft and even. One child is curled up under your arm like a kitten made of elbows, and another has stolen half your blanket. You let them. They're warm, and you're too tired to fight a blanket war. Besides, they'll grow too big to curl up like that soon. You know how quickly time passes when all the days blur together in sun and sand and the scent of barley dough. You close your eyes. But as always, thoughts sneak in. You wonder idly what the scribes will write about your time. Will anyone remember the man who fixed a broken canal with a stick and a bad back? Will anyone sing songs of the day you wrestled a goose and lost with dignity? Probably not. But maybe they'll remember that the barley grew, that the bread fed full bellies, that the canal kept running even after someone tried to drive a cart through it sideways. You chuckle softly. The child under your arm stirs, mutters something about figs, and goes still again. You think of your ancestors, the ones who first dug these trenches, who lined them with stones hauled by hand and hope, the ones who built ovens, not monuments, who measured their success not in pyramids but in peaceful dinners and children's laughter. You think of those who will come after, your sons, your daughters, your grandchildren you haven't met yet. You hope they have easier days, but if not, you hope they inherit your stubbornness. The oil lamp beside you flickers once, twice, then fades out completely. The room darkens, folds in on itself, becomes one with the hush outside. The wind slips through the reeds, brushing the walls with whispers. Crickets chirp in unison. Somewhere, the Nile hums its low, eternal tune. Your mind drifts gently to the gods. Are they watching? Do they laugh when you curse your hoe or pretend not to see the goose? Or do they simply nod, pleased with your perseverance? You whisper a simple thanks, no ceremony, no offering, just words in the dark. And then finally your body softens, your breath slows. The weight of the day slips off your shoulders like a linen tunic at sundown. You are home, you are full, you are enough. The night deepens and everything slows. The frogs have quieted now, their songs replaced by the rhythmic hush of wind through papyrus reeds. The stars stretch high and wide, blinking slowly in their constellations, silent guardians of sleeping fields. Your breathing softens. The cool air brushes against your cheeks like the gentle palm of a parent from long ago. The earth beneath you is firm and warm, holding you in place as if to say, "Rest now, you've done enough." You picture the Nile, still flowing, still glistening under moonlight, carrying water and memory side by side. The fields sleep too, every seed resting beneath its blanket of soil, waiting for light, waiting for tomorrow. Above, the gods sail across the sky. You can almost see Ra's boat gliding through the stars, his crew at the ready, keeping darkness at bay. But that's their job. Yours is done. No more geese, no more scribes, no more ditches or goats or mystery onions. Just peace. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift far from here. To the cool edges of memory, to dreams where you are neither farmer nor father, but simply still. You're safe, you're loved, you're here. Sleep well, farmer of the Nile. Tomorrow will come, but not yet. Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back into the dust and discipline of ancient Rome. Not the marble columns, the grand speeches, or the orgies. Don't get too excited. No, tonight you're not an emperor or a philosopher. You're a Roman legionary, and your job is to march, sweat, and survive. The sun isn't even up yet, but something's already jabbing you in the ribs. Is it the cold? Is it a rock under your sleeping mat? No, it's your bunkmate's elbow. You groan and sit up, your back creaking like a temple door, the leather of your tunic sticking unpleasantly to your skin. Welcome to life in the castra, the Roman military camp, where privacy is a myth and snoring is an ancient art form. Around you, the tent is packed shoulder to shoulder with half-dressed men all doing the same thing, blinking, scratching, and muttering in several regional dialects of Latin that are mostly just complaints. You look around and spot your helmet on the floor, half under someone's sandal. It still smells like last week's forced march. You fish it out, try to smooth your hair, and fail. You gave up looking good in armor about 2 campaigns ago. Your bedroll is damp, your boots are stiff, and your right shoulder is sore from carrying a shield heavier than your career options. Outside, a trumpet blares, the official get up or get punished signal. Someone mutters a prayer to Jupiter. Someone else curses Mars. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always love seeing how far this little storytelling army travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You throw off your blanket, well, you're slightly less dirty than yesterday cloak, and stumble outside. The air is cool, sharp, filled with smoke from early cook fires and the collective body odor of 200 men who bathe when necessary. The camp itself is laid out in perfect Roman efficiency, rows of tents like stitched lines in a scroll. In the distance, a centurion is already pacing with his vine staff, which he uses for discipline, pointing and possibly stirring porridge. You pass a fellow soldier trying to chase a chicken out of his boot. Another is brushing his teeth with a stick in ashes. Someone is already arguing over a missing sandal, even though it's clearly on his other foot. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers really lived this close together or whether archaeological reconstructions have exaggerated the snugness of their quarters. Either way, you now know exactly what your bunkmate smells like after eating garlic and bad fish. You find the communal wash barrel and splash icy water on your face. It helps, a little. You peer into the water and spot something that might be a beetle or the last remaining shred of your dignity. You leave both there. Breakfast will come soon, if you can call it that. But for now, it's time to gear up. You retrieve your gladius, the short stabbing sword that's more extension of arm than weapon. It still has a nick from that time you parried a scorpion. Totally unintentional, but very impressive. Next is your scutum, the large, curved shield that weighs as much as a guilt-ridden senator. You throw it over your shoulder like you mean it. Your body groans in protest. You nod to your tent mates, most of whom look like they'd rather face a horde of angry Gauls than do morning drills. And with that, your day as a Roman soldier has officially begun. Not with glory, but with grumpiness, grime, and a sincere desire to find whoever invented chainmail and ask if it really needed to be this itchy. The cold water still clings to your cheeks as you trudge back to your tent, where your armor lies in a sad little pile, scuffed, dented, and somehow heavier than you remember. It's the Roman equivalent of business casual, except instead of neckties and leather shoes, it's chainmail and shin splints. You begin the sacred morning ritual, putting on your lorica segmentata, the segmented armor that looks cool in paintings and feels like wrestling a metal octopus in real life. First, the undertunic, itchy, slightly damp, and suspiciously stained in one corner. Then the chest pieces, which never line up unless someone is helping you. No one is helping you. With gritted teeth and several awkward wiggles, you manage to secure the leather straps across your chest. The armor creaks and shifts like it's trying to escape your body. You tighten your belt, which also happens to double as a place to hang your dagger, your coin pouch, and your last hopes for comfort. You reach for your helmet. It's dented on the left side, a lovely souvenir from a bar brawl in Gaul. You inspect it, give it a knock, sounds solid, and then pull it onto your head. It's tight, possibly because your tent mate borrowed it to carry water yesterday, or maybe your head is growing from stress. Your boots, the caligae, are next, leather sandals with iron hobnails on the bottom. They're built for marching, stabbing, slipping in mud, and very little else. One of the straps has snapped. You tie it together with a string. It won't last the week, but then again, neither will your patience. You glance around camp and notice the younger recruits still fumbling with their gear, their armor twisted, one trying to wear his helmet backward like a soup bowl. You offer no help. You went through it. So will they. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers were required to maintain their gear daily or just whenever the centurion had a bad mood. You've learned to assume it's always the second option. Your centurion appears as if summoned by thought, stern, scar-faced, and already yelling. He's doing the daily gear inspection with his vine staff, poking, prodding, and occasionally smacking someone who dared forget to clean their sword. He eyes your armor, gives your shield a rap, then squints at your helmet. Dented, he says. You nod. Why? You pause. Fell on it, sir. While wearing it? Yes, sir, he grunts. You're not sure if that means acceptable or next time I'm going to throw you at a wall. Either way, you pass. You fall into formation. Rows of men standing shoulder to shoulder, some still yawning, others adjusting their belts for the 5th time. The sun's just beginning to rise, casting long golden streaks across the stone walls of the camp. The centurion gives the morning speech. It's short. It involves the words discipline, pride, and stop stealing from the kitchen. He then tells you what you'll be doing today. Drills, 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 and then more drills. The horns sound again. You begin to march out to the training field, your shield slung over your shoulder, your gladius knocking against your thigh, and the full weight of a day you can already tell is going to be long, sweaty, and possibly goose-infested. You still haven't forgiven the geese from last week's food raid. As you march, you mutter the standard prayer under your breath. Please let my sandals hold. Please let my centurion be hoarse. Please let me not be the example in today's punishment demonstration. Your friend beside you is already making bets on how many recruits will faint before lunch. You say 3. He says 5. The loser has to clean latrines. You look forward at the field, where wooden training dummies await like very patient victims. The sun rises higher, the dust begins to stir, and you, fully suited, sore-footed, and already hungry again, prepare to fight invisible enemies with more enthusiasm than you'll show your relatives at Saturnalia. Breakfast arrives late. Or maybe your sense of time is just broken by all the shouting. Either way, after morning drills that included forced jogging, spear throwing, and being told your stance looks like a startled flamingo, you finally collapse near the mess area. You're grateful for any moment not involving someone screaming in Latin. The mess tent is more of an idea than an actual structure. A few benches, some planks of wood balanced on barrels, and the comforting aroma of slightly burnt grain. A soldier near you mutters that he saw a weevil in the flour sack this morning. Another says that weevils are extra protein. You decide you don't want to know. Today's breakfast offering is the usual. Pulse, a kind of barley porridge that tastes like soggy ambition. It's accompanied by a wedge of panis militaris, military hardtack bread that makes your teeth question their loyalty. You tap the crust. It echoes. A jug of pasca, a sour mix of vinegar and water, is passed around. It's refreshing in the way a slap to the face is refreshing. Not what you asked for, but it definitely wakes you up. You take a sip and grimace. At least it kills germs. Maybe small dreams, too. Across from you, a recruit tries to cut his bread with a dagger. The bread wins. You offer him your shoulder to bang it against. That's the true Roman spirit, sharing your pain. As you eat, you overhear the usual rumors circulating like flies around honey. Barbarians sighted beyond the Rhine. The emperor's sending someone important to inspect the legion. They're reducing rations again. That last one gets everyone's attention. Someone chokes on their porridge. A veteran swears on Juno's eyebrows. You try to tune it out and focus on chewing, which takes effort. You're fairly sure this bread could stop an arrow if held correctly. Historians still argue whether the Roman military diet was adequate or deliberately bland to discourage morale-boosting conversations. Whatever the case, it fills your belly and ensures no one dares nap too deeply. You'd be awakened by indigestion. After eating, you wipe your hands on your tunic, which is already crusty with the tears of yesterday's lunchtime. A flock of birds circles overhead. You briefly wonder if they're omens, or just waiting for someone to choke. Someone yells, "Inspection," and the mess area clears out faster than a Gaul in a toga shop. Back in camp, you stop by your tent to pick up your spare tunic, which smells like old onions and hope. You consider changing. Then you remember, there's afternoon training ahead. Sweat is inevitable. You toss the tunic aside and march on. But first, you check your gear. Your gladius is cleanish. Your shield has a fresh chip from yesterday's exercise where you fell into a stack of javelins. You quickly patch it with resin and hope no one notices. You've got 20 minutes before afternoon drills, and you choose to spend them wisely, sitting in the shade, staring at ants. One of your comrades joins you, flops down like a dropped amphora, and groans. Together, you engage in the oldest Roman military tradition, complaining. You both grumble about everything: the heat, the centurion's breath, the guy who keeps singing during latrine duty. You contemplate deserting, starting a vineyard in Sicily, maybe writing tragic poetry. But you know you'll be back at formation in a few minutes, ready to stab straw dummies and pretend you know which end of the javelin goes forward. The horns sound again, time to go. You rise slowly like a man about to fight a bear made of paperwork. Your friend mutters, "Ready to die for the glory of Rome?" You grin, as long as it's after lunch, and together you march back into the dust. The sun is now fully committed to roasting the camp, like it owes it money. You're back on the field, standing in a vaguely straight line, squinting under your helmet as the dust settles in every crease of your body. Your shield digs into your shoulder, your gladius taps your thigh with each breath, and your calves are considering filing a formal complaint. The centurion arrives. He's got that special look, eyebrows furrowed, jaw clenched, vine staff already tapping against his leg. You know what that means. It's time for inspection. You shift your weight and straighten your posture to, "I'm awake and pretending to care" mode. The centurion stalks down the line, his eyes sharp and judgmental. First, he stops at the recruit next to you, flicks dust off his shoulder, and mutters, "Disgrace." The poor lad doesn't even blink. He's used to it. Then the centurion reaches you. His eyes drop to your sandals. "Strap's broken," he growls. You nod. "Fix it." "I did, sir," with hope. He doesn't laugh. Of course not. He moves on. That's a win in your book. Next is weapons check. You draw your gladius with a flourish. That's secretly you checking if it's still there. It's clean, mostly. You run your thumb along the blade, pretending not to wince at the dull spot you didn't have time to sharpen. He knocks on your shield like it's a tavern door. "Still holding together?" "Like my will to live, sir. Barely, but functional." He smirks. That might actually be a smirk. You'll mark that as the high point of your day. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers were actually terrified of their centurions or just extremely good at pretending to be. You're personally on team terrified, with a side of sarcasm. After inspection, it's time for formation drills. The centurion bellows, "Testudo!" You and your unit drop shields in practiced motion, forming the legendary turtle formation. Front row shields face out, top row shields arch overhead, side shields tuck in. It's a marvel of engineering, and it works, unless someone forgets to overlap. Guess who forgot? The new recruit on the left leaves a gap, and the centurion, never one to waste an opportunity, promptly tosses a rock through it. It lands on your foot. You don't scream, you just question your life choices internally. Testudo again, this time tighter. You grunt, you sweat. Your shieldmate's breath smells like onions and regret, but the formation holds. After several rounds of this, you're marched across the field in battle scenario. You pretend the practice dummy is a barbarian. You stab with your gladius, you parry with your shield. You shout your war cry, well, something between a growl and a very tired, "Ah!" The centurion paces the rows. "Again!" You repeat the drill. Your sword arm aches, your legs burn, your toes are plotting rebellion. But your form? Flawless. Probably, maybe, hopefully. Finally, you hear the best sound in any Roman soldier's day. Stand down. You drop formation, you stagger to the side, you lean on your shield like it's the only thing keeping your soul inside your body. A few men collapse dramatically onto the grass. One actually kisses it. Someone else just lies flat, whispering, "Tell my sandals, I tried." You find a shaded corner and sit, not gracefully, more like falling with intention. Your friend plops beside you and groans, "How are we not statues by now? We deserve to be statues." You nod. "Put me next to Mars, naked, holding a fish, I don't care anymore." Someone nearby starts humming a marching song. You throw a rock at him, not hard, just enough to say, "Please don't." And then the messenger arrives, covered in dust, panting, holding a scroll. He hands it to the centurion, who reads it, frowns, and turns to the unit. Change of schedule, patrol at sunset, full gear. The groan that erupts from the group could flatten a forest. But you're too tired to care. You lie back in the grass, eyes on the sky, wondering if those clouds look like battle formations or just more things waiting to fall on you. Probably both. Sunset casts a golden glow over the camp. The kind that would look romantic if you weren't covered in dust and dreading patrol duty. The sky is glowing like a polished bronze shield. You, however, are glowing like a roasted eggplant. You gather your gear, again. It feels heavier this time, like your armor absorbed your complaints and decided to punish you. Your boots squeak ominously. That one broken strap you tied with hope, it's now tied with a backup hope. The centurion, ever enthusiastic about ruining evenings, lines everyone up for patrol. He reads off names. Yours is on the list, obviously. You try not to make eye contact. Too late, he's already pointing at you. You're assigned to a 4-man patrol unit. You, your best friend, a new recruit who still thinks this is an adventure, and a veteran named Lucius who communicates mostly in shrugs and low-level groans. You start walking. The mission: patrol the outer perimeter of the camp and check in with the watch posts. Simple. The kind of thing that almost never goes wrong, which is historically the exact phrase uttered right before things go terribly wrong. The new recruit hums as he walks. You glare at him. "Don't whistle either," Lucius mutters. "Why not?" "Because birds might mistake you for one of them and carry you away. Happened to a guy I knew." You're 90% sure he's joking. Only 90%. The path is lined with torches, their flames fluttering in the wind. Shadows dance across the scrubby ground. You pass a group of farmers leading a cart of hay and wave. They nod respectfully, or maybe fearfully. It's hard to tell when you're dressed like an iron casserole. The silence stretches. You hear an owl. The new recruit jumps. "It's just an owl," you say, "unless it's an omen." "Is it?" You pause. Historians still argue whether Romans truly believed owls were harbingers of death, or if that was just something made up to scare children into sleeping during thunder. Either way, the recruit is now walking closer to you. You feel like a babysitter who also carries a sword. As you reach the far end of the patrol route, the sky deepens into that deep indigo shade that feels eternal. Stars blink awake overhead, slowly, like tiny gods checking in for the night shift. You stop and admire the stillness. Lucius surprisingly speaks. "You know, I once saw a comet during patrol, bright as Jupiter's ego. Everyone thought it meant the Emperor would die." "Did he?" the recruit asks. "No," Lucius says. "But we did get double rations that week, so who's to say which is better?" You continue your round. A couple of bored guards greet you with exaggerated salutes. One of them is roasting onions over a small fire and offers you one. You accept. It's burned on one side, raw on the other, and somehow still comforting. You chew in silence. Eventually, your shift ends. No barbarians, no wild animals, no omen-related disappearances, just a quiet walk through a dangerous world that, for one night, decided to stay asleep. You trudge back to camp, your feet reminding you of every mile. Your shoulders ache, your knees are no longer attached, they're negotiating new terms. As you pass the stables, the horses nicker softly. One tries to nibble your helmet. You let it. It's been a long day. Finally, you reach your tent. You undo your armor slowly, methodically, as if peeling off the weight of Rome itself. You lay it down beside you, clunk, scrape, sigh. Your cloak becomes your blanket. Your helmet becomes your pillow. Your sword lies by your side like a quiet, judgmental pet. You lie back and stare at the tent ceiling. It smells like sweat, old leather, and shared dreams of being literally anywhere else. Your friend beside you mumbles, "If I survive this week, I'm opening a bakery." You can't bake. I'll learn. The new recruit is already snoring. Lucius is whispering something that might be a prayer, or a recipe. It's hard to tell. You close your eyes. Your ears ring with the sounds of Rome, footsteps on gravel, distant laughter, the faint creak of a gate, and someone arguing about whether olives belong in porridge. You smile. Somehow, this strange, dusty, heavy life has grown on you. And with that, you drift off, still armored, still sore, but strangely at peace. Morning returns not with the soft call of a lark or the gentle rustle of leaves, but with the thundering, absolutely unnecessary blast of a Roman horn being played like the world is ending. Your eyes shoot open. Your first thought, again? Your second, why does he always play it in my direction? You sit up with the speed and grace of a sack of bricks. Around you, the tent comes alive, or at least groans into motion. Boots thud, armor clinks. Someone curses in 3 dialects and knocks over a water jug. Someone else is already eating cold barley porridge out of their helmet. You roll over and reach for your caligae. Your left foot has swollen mysteriously overnight, so the boot now fits like a punishment. You force it on anyway, because there's no time to argue with your own feet. Outside, the sun is rising lazily, but the centurion isn't. He's already barking orders, vine staff in hand, eyes scanning for late risers. You shuffle into formation with the grace of a man who spent the night spooning his sword. "Run drills," he barks. "Full gear, 10 laps." There's a collective groan from the unit so deep and unified it could be considered music. You run. 10 laps around the dusty perimeter of the camp, in armor that rubs, rattles, and reminds you why you didn't join the priesthood. Your sword bounces against your thigh. Your shield slaps your back. Every breath feels like you're inhaling sand and yesterday's regret. By lap 3, your calves are on fire. By lap 5, you've accepted your legs are no longer yours. By lap 7, you're hallucinating centurions yelling in rhyming couplets. By lap 10, you finish just behind a guy who looks like he's going to throw up and salute at the same time. You collapse against a rock, gasping, red-faced, wondering if your ancestors are laughing at you. Probably. Historians still argue whether Roman training regimens were intended to build endurance or simply weed out anyone with a weak spirit or a low pain threshold. Either way, you're still standing, sort of. Next up, pilum practice. You're handed a weighted throwing spear. The handle is warm. The balance is not great. You take position behind the throwing line, square your stance, and aim for the wooden dummy 10 paces ahead. You throw. It hits the ground 3 feet short. Your friend throws. It hits the dummy's head with a satisfying thunk. You consider swapping arms with him, or identities. The centurion passes behind you. You throw like a Gallic poet. You mumble, "Thank you," but it doesn't come out convincing. The rest of the morning dissolves into lunges, slashes, and shield drills. You hold the shield above your head for 5 minutes straight until your arms feel like noodles. You do group marches in sync. You almost collide with the unit ahead of you. Your centurion shouts something about rhythm, honor, and his grandmother being able to march better blindfolded. You sneak a glance at your friend. He's mouthing every command 5 seconds behind. You're not sure if he's tired or has entered a fugue state. Eventually, mercifully, the horn sounds again, this time for a break. You stagger to a shady patch, unclip your armor, and flop down like a fish escaping a net. A bird flies overhead. You pray it doesn't poop on you. It doesn't. Small victory. Someone passes around a skin of pasca. You drink. It tastes like vinegar marinated in metal. You love it. You hate it. It's hydrating, probably. The centurion walks by and growls, "Drills resume in 30 minutes. Don't die in the meantime." He says it like a joke. You're not laughing. You lie back, arms sprawled, staring at the cloudless sky. Your tunic clings to you like guilt. Your shield rests nearby, casting a round shadow that reminds you how small your comfort zone is. Your friend rolls onto his side. What if we just didn't go back? To where? The tent? Rome? Existence? Any of it. You both stare at the sky, thinking about bakeries, vineyards, and lives where your morning workout doesn't involve weapons. Then the horn sounds again. You sit up, you sigh, you march, because you are a Roman soldier. And your day? It's far from over. Midday arrives like an anvil to the face, hot, heavy, and utterly unavoidable. The sun is now directly above you, cooking the earth, your armor, and your patience with equal intensity. Your shadow shrinks to the size of a coin. Your brain feels like it's sweating. Drills are done for now, and the words "free time" echo in your skull like a hymn from the gods. But don't get too excited. Free time for a Roman soldier is more like choose your own suffering hour. You head back to your tent, where your tunic is clinging to you with the devotion of a clingy ex. You peel it off and wring out enough sweat to irrigate a small olive grove. First order of business, laundry. You gather your socks. Yes, Roman soldiers wore them sometimes, especially in the provinces where cold was a real thing, and haul them to the communal wash pit. The water is gray, suspiciously bubbly, and smells faintly of vinegar and regret. You scrub your tunic against a flat stone, watching a beetle float by as if to say, "You think your life's hard?" Next, equipment check. You sit cross-legged in the shade and inspect your gladius. The blade is still slightly nicked from yesterday's dummy massacre. You rub it with oil which smells like olives and pennies. You patch a small split in your leather harness with string and spit. Is it regulation? No. Is it holding? Also no, but you pretend. Nearby, a few soldiers are writing letters home. They dip styluses into ink made from soot and wine, scratching onto wax tablets with the intensity of love-struck philosophers. You peek at one. Dearest Flavia, today I was kicked in the shin by a mule. The mule, I believe, is winning. Romance is alive and well in the Roman Empire. You decide to write a letter too. You don't have a Flavia, so you write to your cousin, who once sold you a defective amphora and claimed it was artisanal. Your message is mostly sarcasm. Then comes lice patrol. Yes, that most noble of duties, checking your body and clothes for little freeloaders that treat you like a living buffet. You go through your tunic with a comb made from bone. You find a few suspects. You squint at them, mutter a prayer to Mars, and squash them with grim efficiency. Your neighbor is doing the same, mumbling, "They're organizing. I can feel it." Historians still argue whether lice were truly as common in Roman camps as literature suggests, or if soldiers just exaggerated for dramatic effect. Either way, you now understand why no one wants to borrow your sleeping mat. After the grooming phase, you take a short walk to stretch your legs and possibly escape the smell of your tent. The camp is buzzing. Some men are repairing spear shafts. Others are gambling with dice carved from sheep bones. Someone is trying to teach his helmet to sit upright. You don't ask. You pass by the cook's area, where someone is experimenting with boiling cabbage and fish. You nearly gag. The smell is a war crime. The chef offers you a taste. You decline with a polite noise that sounds like choking. You find a shady spot under a fig tree and lie down. For a few blissful minutes, there's no yelling, no drills. No leather straps digging into your collarbone. Just the soft rustle of leaves, a few distant clinks, and the muffled sound of someone somewhere yelling, "I won!" followed by a crash. You close your eyes, just a little rest, maybe even a nap. You begin to drift when, "Mail!" Your eyes snap open. A runner from headquarters enters the camp, waving a sack like it's filled with gold, which in this case it might as well be, because it contains letters from home. You stand, stretch, hobble over with half the camp. The runner reads names. A few men cheer. One cries. One gets a scroll and mutters, "Oh no, it's from my mother again." You don't get one. That's fine. Your cousin never writes back anyway. Probably still mad about the olive oil incident. You return to your shady spot, lie down again, and watch the clouds. One looks like a helmet, one looks like a goat, one looks like your centurion yelling. You sigh, even your imagination can't catch a break. But hey, at least it's free time. You're just starting to drift off again, head nestled in the curve of your shield, the sound of someone snoring 2 tenths over oddly comforting, when the afternoon meal horn blares through the camp like Jupiter just dropped his trumpet. You sit up slowly, the way an old marble statue might stretch if given the chance. Your body protests every motion. Your stomach, however, roars with the voice of a lion. You head toward the makeshift mess area where the midday meal is already being slopped into clay bowls by the least enthusiastic cooks in the empire. Their hair is greasy, their tunics stained with something that might be stew or yesterday. Today's spread, a familiar medley, cheese, flatbread, and olives, accompanied by a spoonful of what might be lentils or might be overcooked pebbles. You don't ask questions. You've learned to chew and pray. The bread is chewy, tough, and has the texture of boiled sandals. You dip it in the lentil mess anyway. That helps, slightly. Across the table, a soldier named Publius is whispering something with the urgency of a man who knows something, but wants credit for not saying it too loud. "They say the Gauls are moving south again," he hisses. You look up from your bread. "Again? I thought they were all dead," Publius shrugs. "Apparently they're back, or it's their cousins, or their cousins' cousins." Another soldier snorts. "It's probably just goats. The last time we prepared for an invasion it was 20 goats and a very aggressive shepherd." Publius leans in. "But this time it's real. I heard they've got blue paint, wolf pelts, and curses that turn your bones to dust." You blink. "I think you're confusing Gauls with bad poetry." Still, the mood at the table shifts. Some men mutter prayers, others flex their fingers on their sword hilts. A few keep eating like none of it matters, which, to be fair, is peak veteran energy. Historians still argue whether such midday rumors were a genuine warning system or simply the Roman military version of gossip. Either way, they make the lentils taste worse. Lunch continues with occasional burps, the clatter of clay bowls, and a few shouted bets about who would survive if barbarians really did show up. You're not on anyone's short list. That's fine. You've never even finished a sparring session without stepping on your own foot. After the meal, there's a brief moment of communal cleanup. You return your bowl, rinse it in a tub of grayish water, and wonder if you'll ever be allowed to forget the smell. Your centurion appears, of course, just in time to kill the post-lunch vibe. He calls out a few names, yours is included. Perimeter check now. You groan. Your friend groans louder as if to outdo you. The centurion gives both of you the look, the one that says he's one sarcastic comment away from assigning you to latrine cleaning for a week. You salute, half-heartedly, but still. You gather your gear, boots dragging through the dust, like they miss your nap as much as you do. Your little group heads out through the outer gate, following a worn path between the edge of camp and the nearby village. The sun isn't as harsh now, but the light is golden and blinding in that dramatic way you'd appreciate more if you weren't sweating into your belt. You pass some locals, farmers hauling baskets of figs, kids chasing each other with sticks, an old woman selling something that looks like dried frogs. She tries to hand you one. You decline with a nervous chuckle. She doesn't. Further down the path, you spot the watchtower, where two guards are very obviously playing a dice game and pretending to be alert. They scramble when they see you. You nod. All clear? One of them stands straighter than usual. Crystal clear, sir. Not a barbarian in sight, unless you count my brother over there. His brother, equally unbothered, waves while chewing on something that crunches. Possibly a frog. The patrol ends without incident. No invaders, no wolves, no curses. Just dusty boots, a couple of fly bites, and the growing sense that tomorrow will look exactly like today. Back at camp, you peel off your gear and sit again beneath the fig tree. A breeze stirs the leaves. The sun dips lower. The shadows stretch like lazy cats. Your friend sits beside you. Still think the Gauls are coming? You shrug. Let 'em come. I'll feed them this bread. That should stop anyone. You both laugh, quietly, tiredly, but genuinely. For now, the world is still, and that's enough. The breeze begins to cool as the sun slinks toward the western hills, casting the camp in a warm orange that makes everything look just a bit more heroic than it feels. You watch as the shadows of spears grow longer, stretching like sleepy dogs across the trampled earth. Evening patrol is done. No Gauls, no curses, not even a confused goat pretending to be a barbarian. Just you, your aching feet, and the comforting realization that dinner is next. But first, chores. You head back toward the village edge where your unit is assigned to help resupply. That's Roman military life for you. Fight in the morning, haul sacks of lentils in the evening. You pass crates of olives, amphorae of wine, and one very angry chicken tied to a post. It's unclear if it's dinner or a guard animal. Your job? Count the poultry. Yes, poultry. There's been a discrepancy in the camp's chicken inventory. Last week, 12 were recorded. This morning, only 10 were clucking. Your centurion thinks someone's sneaking eggs. The cooks think someone's been sneaking chicken. The chickens refuse to comment, so you count 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's missing feathers and looks suspiciously like it lost a wrestling match. You note it anyway. By the time you finish, you've counted 11 chickens, a duck, and a bundle of feathers that might once have had ambitions of flight. Historians still argue whether Roman supply systems were highly organized or mostly held together by fear, paperwork, and goats named after emperors. After counting chickens for half an hour, you lean toward the goat theory. You report your findings to the quartermaster, who writes it all down with the seriousness of someone documenting a military coup. He hands you a broken stylus and tells you to note anything unusual. You write, "One chicken looks angry." Back in camp, the day winds down into its evening rhythm. Some soldiers polish gear, some gamble over wine. One guy is trying to juggle 3 apples while wearing his helmet backward. He is not succeeding. Dinner arrives with all the enthusiasm of a shrug. Tonight's fare: more lentils, slightly burnt bread, and dried figs that taste like history. You sit in the dirt, back against a barrel, and dig in. The bread's hard, the lentils are lukewarm, and the figs have seeds that might outlive you. But no one's yelling, and your feet aren't moving. That counts for something. Your friend nudges you. "Guess what I heard?" You groan. "More Gauls?" "Nope, we're getting visitors." You raise an eyebrow. Some senator's nephew, fresh from Rome, wants to observe the life of a true legionary. You blink. Do you think he knows that involves chicken inventory? Probably not. He'll probably expect a parade and a war story. You take another bite of bread. Well, he's getting a lecture on counting poultry and how to avoid burning your knees on metal armor. Your friend grins. "Welcome to the real Rome." You both laugh, and for a moment, everything feels light, or at least not heavy. Later, you and a few others gather near the outer campfire for combat drills, but not the sweaty kind, the verbal kind. Everyone takes turns telling stories from their past campaigns. Some are true, most are not. All are entertaining. Lucius, the grizzled veteran, claims he once beat 3 Germanic warriors using only his helmet and a sharp look. Your centurion appears and joins in, which is rare. He tells a tale about a soldier who tripped on his own gladius and became a local legend. You're halfway through a mouthful of fig when you realize that was probably him. Eventually, the stories give way to silence. The fire crackles. The stars begin to show themselves one by one. You lie back, using your rolled-up cloak as a pillow, and stare at the sky. Mars is visible tonight, bright and red, like the god himself punched a hole through the heavens. You wonder what he thinks of all this. The chickens, the drills, the boots with busted straps, probably amused, maybe even proud. The centurion clears his throat. "Lights out in 1 hour." Someone groans. Another whispers, "Don't worry, we're not moving the chickens again tonight." You chuckle. Another day behind you. And bearing sudden invasion or chicken revolt, the night ahead promises one rare treasure: rest. The fire crackles quietly now, burning lower as the last log splits in two with a soft hiss. Around it, soldiers begin drifting off, some to tents, some right where they sit. You remain for a while, propped on your elbow, watching embers float upward like little stars that forgot how to stay in the sky. It's nearly time for night formation. You grumble softly and get to your feet. The stiffness in your knees is now a full-time companion. Your sword belt sags a little to the left, your scabbard creaks, and your cloak smells like lentils and leather. So basically, like everything else you own. You join the others under the torch-lit archway near the camp's center. This is where the centurion does his nightly announcements, which are half reminders, half therapy sessions, and occasionally threats disguised as riddles. Tonight, he's in a good mood, or he's just too tired to be mad. He tells you that the senator's nephew is arriving tomorrow. So clean your tents, try not to smell like goats, and if anyone asks, we haven't had a chicken go missing in 2 weeks. Someone near the back coughs, 3 days. The centurion looks up sharply. Silence, he nods. Good, that's what I thought. Next comes the last exercise of the day, testudo drills, the classic Roman turtle formation. Yes again, even though the sun has set, even though your shoulders are begging for mercy, the idea is that discipline never sleeps. So neither do you. You line up, shield out, brace, lock. The formation clicks into place. From the outside, you imagine it looks majestic. From the inside, it's like being trapped in a very crowded, very angry wooden barrel. You shuffle forward, you turn, you crouch, you rise. The centurion throws a handful of pebbles onto the top. A few fall through. He snarls, "Plug your gaps, or the archers will find them before I do." You adjust your shield. It squeaks. Historians still argue whether this formation was as widely used in real combat as Hollywood makes it out to be, or if it was more of a parade trick. Right now, it's a cruel group yoga session with no breathing exercises and a high chance of splinters. After a few passes across the field, you're finally dismissed. Someone cheers too loudly, someone else immediately tackles them. You return to your tent in a daze, like a ghost wearing boots. Inside it's dark but familiar. Your bedroll awaits, modestly padded, perpetually dusty but yours. You sit and begin removing your gear piece by piece, each buckle like a puzzle created by a bored blacksmith. Off goes the belt, off goes the shoulder guard, off comes the tunic, revealing skin marked by sun, sweat, and one very suspicious bruise from yesterday's sparring match. You clean your gladius. It's dull and a little bent at the tip, like it's as tired of today as you are. Then comes the last quiet ritual, checking your kit. You lay everything out. Helmet, shield, sword, belt, sandals, cloak. You've done this so many times it's automatic. But you do it anyway. Because tomorrow, the senator's nephew will want a tour. And maybe, just maybe, you'd like to look like the statue they think you are. Your bunkmate flops in beside you with a grunt. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. You both know the rhythm now. Grind, sleep, repeat. But before you lie down, there's one last thing. From a pouch under your cloak, you pull out a small carved wooden token, a little horse worn smooth from years of fingers. A gift from your sister, long before you joined the legions. You turn it in your hand, then place it carefully under your pillow. Outside, the sounds of the camp dim, murmurs, footsteps, a final clink of armor, the soft snap of someone's belt giving out. You lie down, you exhale. And for the first time all day, the world feels still. Darkness has settled fully now, cloaking the camp in layers of torchlight and soft shadow. The air has cooled, finally, and the sharp bite of the day has eased into something more forgiving. You lie still, half awake, half dreaming, listening to the familiar lullaby of night, the occasional clink of armor, the distant bark of a dog, the never-ending chorus of snoring that sounds like an off-rhythm drumline played by men and goats. But there's no full sleep just yet. Because, of course, it's your turn for night watch. You sit up slowly, like someone rising from the grave, only to realize there's a second shift. Your joints protest. Your eyelids scream betrayal. Your bunkmate mutters something about Jupiter and buries his head under the cloak. You grab your sword, sling your cloak over your shoulder, and step outside. The night air kisses your skin, cool, a little damp, and filled with that faint scent of baked earth and olive oil that never really leaves you. Overhead, the stars are thick and vivid, as if the gods themselves poked holes in the sky to spy on you. You report to the perimeter gate. There, a torch flickers in its holder, and 2 guards from the earlier watch greet you with all the energy of overcooked lentils. "Quiet night," one says. "Too quiet," the other adds. You nod with the solemn authority of someone who is 90% asleep and 10% toast. Your post is along the north wall, near the supply tents and goat pens. A noble assignment, possibly punishment, possibly random luck, possibly both. You start pacing slowly, step, breathe, scan. There's not much to see, a few trees swaying in the distance. The glint of moonlight on iron nails, and one goat watching you far too intently, like it suspects you of stealing its dinner last week. You lean against the wooden fence and rest your arms on the top rail, eyes scanning the darkness. It's peaceful, strangely so. Then, a rustle. You straighten, hand on sword, eyes narrowed. You wait. Out steps a cat. Not just any cat, the same black and white scruffy menace that's been prowling the kitchens for days. It looks at you with disdain, hops onto a crate, and falls asleep instantly. You let out a breath. You're not sure if it was relief or a sigh of resignation. Historians still argue whether animals were regularly kept in Roman camps, or if they just showed up, made themselves useful, and became unofficial mascots. Either way, that cat now outranks several men in this legion. You resume your pacing, step, turn, yawn. Eventually, another sound reaches your ears, a rhythmic clack-clack like wood tapping stone. You peer toward the village. A hunched figure is walking slowly along the outer road. A farmer returning late, carrying a bundle of firewood, singing softly. You relax. He waves when he sees you. You wave back. Rome, for all its empire-building glory, is still made up of people trying to get through their day, or night, carrying firewood, feeding goats, watching stars. Your replacement arrives just as the moon reaches its peak. A tall, sleepy lad with one sandal untied and eyes red as wine dregs. He nods at you, takes the post, and leans on his spear like it's the only thing keeping him upright. You whisper, "Nothing to report, except a goat stared me down." He whispers back, "That's Gregor. He's judging us all." You head back toward your tent, the soft crunch of gravel underfoot now somehow soothing. You pass the dying fire, a few embers still glowing, and the faint smell of burned onions. Inside, your bunk waits, warm from your previous nap and still slightly lumpy. You slide back under your cloak, shift until your shoulders fit the dip in the mat, and rest your head on your bundled tunic. Sleep comes easier now, because the world hasn't ended. The chickens are mostly accounted for, and the goat, still watching. You wake not to a horn, not to shouting, but to the soft rustle of someone untying a sandal. It's still dark, just before dawn. A soft blue glow touches the edge of the tent wall, that sacred little window between exhaustion and sunrise. Around you, the others are still asleep, sprawled, snoring, twitching. One mutters something about figs and betrayal. You lie still for a moment, not moving, just listening. Somewhere outside, a bird gives a single chirp, as if to test the atmosphere. A pot clinks, a whisper. The world is beginning again. Eventually, you sit up and stretch, the motion slow and cautious. Your shoulders creak, your back complains, but your hands know what to do. Reach for the sandals, pull the tunic over your head, tug the belt snug, hang the dagger just right. Routine is everything. You slip outside and breathe in air so cool it feels like a luxury. For a few brief moments, the camp is hushed. Peaceful, beautiful even, if you squint and ignore the faint scent of wet goat. Then the illusion ends. The morning watch is changing shifts, and with them comes the inevitable clatter. Armor scraping, voices grumbling, someone tripping over a tent rope. The day has officially begun. You walk toward the fire pit. It's little more than a ring of ash now, with a few glowing coals buried beneath last night's charred fig stems. One soldier is already poking at it, trying to revive the flame with the determination of a man who just wants warm water. You help him pile on twigs. The two of you work in silence, the kind born of shared exhaustion. Eventually, smoke curls up. A tiny flame follows. Success. Breakfast today is simple. Leftover bread softened in hot water, and a few dates if the cooks are in a generous mood. You sit on a stone, bowl in hand, chewing with the slow determination of a gladiator eating through a helmet. Your centurion arrives, surprisingly calm. No shouting, no threats, just a raised brow and a grunted, "Senator's nephew arrives at midday. Try not to look like pigs." You nod. The morning rolls forward into inspection mode. Tents are swept, armor is polished, sandals are wiped of last night's mystery grime. Even Gregor the goat is brushed, by a soldier who has clearly lost a bet. You're assigned to prep the tour route. This means walking the senator's nephew from the camp's main entrance to the storage tents and back, while pretending the camp doesn't smell like boiled leather and disappointment. You rehearse your lines. This is the armory. Yes, that spear is meant to be crooked. Here we dry the laundry. No, the red tunics are not a fashion statement. Yes, those are real chickens. Please don't try to pet them. Just before noon, a trumpet sounds, and the young noble arrives. He's exactly what you expected. Clean, soft, tunic whiter than a senator's promises. He looks around with wide, gleaming eyes like a puppy let loose in a world of swords. You greet him with your most professional nod. He extends his hand. You shake it. It's warm, delicate, possibly allergic to sun. "Please," he says brightly, "show me what a day in the life of a true legionary is like." You begin the tour. 10 minutes in, he's already sweating. 20 minutes in, he's asking why the goat is staring at him. 30 minutes in, he tries to lift your shield and immediately sets it down with a "never mind." You explain training routines, meal preparation, weapon maintenance, how to dig a latrine trench in under 10 minutes. His eyes get wider and wider. Eventually, he stares at you in horror and whispers, "Do you do this every day?" You smile politely. "Yes," you say, "every single day." Historians still argue whether noble-born Romans truly understood the life of common soldiers or just romanticized them from afar. You now suspect the answer is very, very clear. You guide him back to the main gate, where his servant offers him a cloth to wipe his forehead. He mumbles something about admiration and leaves with an expression that says he'll be skipping the "serve in the Legion" option on his next career questionnaire. After he's gone, the camp lets out a collective sigh of relief. You collapse next to your friend. "How'd he do?" he asks. "He made it 30 minutes before considering crying. That's a new record." He laughs. You both laugh. And you realize you wouldn't trade this life. Not for a white tunic, not for a job in the Senate, not even for a week without chicken inventory. This life is hard, it's dusty, it smells weird, but it's yours, and it's real. The heat begins to settle again, like a heavy wool cloak draped over the camp. Afternoon drills are mercifully canceled, either as a reward for surviving the senator's nephew, or because even the centurion can't yell when he's sweating through his shin guards. You take refuge in the sparse shade of the east wall. where a few other soldiers have gathered for what passes as intellectual enrichment in the Roman army. A short religious lecture and a lot of wildly speculative gossip. Today, the topic is Mars, the god of war, patron of soldiers, bringer of strength, destroyer of knees. A visiting priest from the local temple stands at the center of the circle, holding a carved wooden statue of Mars that's missing one arm and half its nose. He sets it down on a barrel and clears his throat. Mars, as you all know, he begins, was born of Juno alone, without Jupiter's help, so naturally he has anger issues. You nod. That tracks. He commands blood, honor, and strength, but also discipline, strategy, and of course, sacrifices. At the word sacrifices, a few soldiers shift uncomfortably. One pats his side pouch protectively, as if Mars might demand his last fig. The priest continues, when marching into battle, you must carry Mars in your heart, and sometimes in your satchel. You raise an eyebrow. Isn't that heavy? Only spiritually, he says, with a dramatic wave. Then comes the part everyone's waiting for, omen interpretation. The priest pulls a small covered basket forward. You know what's in there. Chickens. Sacred chickens. Yes, the Romans really did this. Chickens were used in divination rituals. If they ate eagerly, it meant the gods approved. If they refused, it meant doom. The priest opens the basket. The chickens blink in the sunlight, unimpressed. A soldier tosses them some grain. They stare at it. They blink again. One pecks at a rock. The priest's face darkens. What does that mean? Someone asks. He sighs. Possibly troubling news from the gods. Or you offer, they're just full, or bored, or dramatic. Historians still argue whether the augury rituals were taken seriously by common soldiers, or whether they just enjoyed the spectacle of poultry pretending to be prophets. Right now, it's definitely the latter. Eventually, one chicken pecks the grain with mild interest. The priest claps his hands. There, an omen of stability. Everyone nods sagely, pretending to understand what that means. With the spiritual duties concluded, the circle slowly dissolves. A few men stay behind to argue about which god throws the best lightning. One insists Neptune once sent a fish to guide his patrol. No one believes him, especially the fish. You take the opportunity to return to your tent and check your mail pouch. Still no letter. That's fine. You weren't expecting one. You only check it daily because it's tradition, and hope is hard to kill. Instead, you pull out your wax tablet and stylus and begin scratching down the day's notes. 8 burnt bread. Senator's nephew survived. Chickens are cryptic. Mars is complicated. After writing, you decide to do a bit of shield maintenance. Your scutum has seen better days. The wooden face is cracked, the paint is chipped, and there's a dent from where Gregor the goat headbutted it last week. You rub in a bit of oil, polish the rim, and try not to think about how much of your life now revolves around livestock and divine poultry. By late afternoon, the camp is quiet again. Some men nap, others mend gear. One is trying to compose a poem to Mars, but he keeps rhyming war with sore, which feels a little too accurate. You lean back, stretch out, and watch the clouds again. One looks like a helmet, another looks like a centurion shouting. You close your eyes. Just for a minute, just until dinner. Because tonight, maybe, just maybe, there'll be real meat. Not goat, not fish, but chicken? You smirk. No, probably not. Those chickens are far too holy. The sun begins to dip below the edge of the hills, bathing the camp in a bronze glow that smooths out the grime, hides the dents in the armor, and, for a fleeting moment, makes everything look almost heroic. You sit near the edge of camp, wiping your gladius clean one last time. It doesn't really need it, but it feels good to do something with your hands. The blade catches the light briefly, and you admire it, not for its deadliness, but for its constancy. Unlike politics, senators, or sacred chickens, a good gladius is reliable. The dinner horn blares, and with it comes a familiar stampede of boots, grumbling, and men arguing about whether dried onions count as vegetables. Tonight, the kitchen gods have smiled modestly upon you. The meal? A thick lentil stew that actually smells decent, with chunks of something that might be meat, or might be mushroom, depending on your level of optimism. A slice of soft bread, rare, and a small ladle of olive oil make it feel downright luxurious. You savor every bite like it's your last. Across the fire, Lucius the veteran leans over, slurping noisily, and says, "You know, I once ate better than this. In a ditch, during a storm, surrounded by Gauls. You raise your spoon. Then this is 5-star. He grins through lentils. Exactly. The camp is quieter now, in that special way only soldiers know. Bodies sore, bellies full, hearts softening with night. You take a slow walk around the perimeter, not for patrol, not for duty, just to move. The torches have been lit. They flicker against the camp walls, casting dancing shadows that make tents look like giant beasts slumbering in the dusk. Someone nearby strums a lyre, badly. Another hums a slow tune that might be a lullaby or a tavern song with half the lyrics forgotten. You pass a dice game where the stakes are low and the insults are affectionate. Back in your tent, you lay out your bedroll. It's simple. A folded cloak on straw, a spare tunic for a pillow, but it's yours. Before sleeping, there's one more habit. Night readiness check. You lay your sword within arm's reach, your sandals tied, not just tossed, your helmet upside down next to your head just in case. Because in a Roman camp, anything could happen. A messenger could burst in, a fire might break out, someone might yell barbarians after one too many cups of fermented grape juice. You lie down and exhale, then a noise, faint, sharp. Not dangerous, but odd. A voice talking in its sleep. You turn your head and listen. It's your bunkmate, mumbling in Latin, not the good kind. Don't take my bread, you greedy goat, that's my fig. You roll over and sigh. Sleep talking round 2. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers suffered more from battle or from their bunkmates. You're firmly in the second camp. A breeze slides in through the tent flap, bringing with it the scent of earth, ash, and something sweet. Figs, maybe. Someone snuck one in. You approve. Around you the camp settles deeper. The torchlight fades, the music ends, even the dice clatter less. Your friend rolls over and whispers, half asleep, "What if we're still doing this in 20 years?" You murmur back, "Then may Mars give us softer sandals." He chuckles, and the sound drifts up into the rafters like smoke. You close your eyes. The stars are rising outside, pinpricks of light watching over you like the silent judgment of the gods. Or maybe just ancient night lanterns hung by the sky. Your sword is by your side, your shield rests near your feet, your body is sore, but your spirit still marching. And tomorrow, it'll all begin again. The moon has taken its throne in the night sky, round and radiant, casting a pale glow over the sleeping camp. You stir, not fully awake, not fully dreaming, caught in that soft space between. A distant owl hoots. The campfire has dwindled to a warm red pulse. Even the goats are asleep, their strange, judgmental stares finally at rest. You lie still, eyes half closed, listening to the night breathe. The steady rhythm of snoring, the rustle of cloaks shifting, the creak of canvas above your head. There's something oddly comforting about it all, like the camp itself is alive and sleeping too. And then, a faint rustle. You sit up, instinct kicking in, hand reaching for your sword, but it's nothing. Just the wind teasing the edge of the tent, tugging like a child asking to come inside. You lie back down. Your muscles ache, not the sharp pain of injury, but the dull, honest soreness of a day well survived. You trace the outline of your shield with your foot, still there, dependable as always. Your helmet, dented and slightly crooked, stands guard beside your mat like a faithful dog. Somewhere nearby, Lucius is humming, a low, wordless tune, an old marching song. You've heard it before, back when you were a green recruit, scrubbing your boots and wondering if you'd make it a week. Now, here you are. Another day behind you. Another day survived. You remember the senator's nephew, the way he looked at your armor, at your hands, at your life, as if it were a storybook, something glorious, clean, noble. And sure, maybe it is, on some days, for a few seconds. But it's also sweat and burned bread and counting chickens. It's cold water, sore backs, and running laps in full armor under a vengeful sun. And somehow, through all of that, you love it. Because there's honor in it. Not the kind they write on scrolls. The quiet kind. The kind that lives in the way your unit hands you water after a long march. The way your friend throws an arm around you after a drill. The way even Gregor the goat seems to nod at you with respect or gas. You reach under your cloak and pull out the small wooden horse again. Run your thumb along its smooth back. You don't always know why you carry it, but you do. Maybe it reminds you that you're still someone's brother, someone's son, someone, and that matters. You tuck it back beneath your mat, your eyes close. And this time, sleep doesn't ask permission. It arrives like a friend, quiet, unassuming, safe, and the camp sleeps with you. The night grows softer now. The stars above drift gently in their celestial lanes, silent watchers of 1,000 camps just like yours. The moonlight spills lazily across the rooftops of the tents, touching every shield, every helmet, every quiet, dreaming face. The fire is nothing more than a warm sigh. No boots thunder now, no commands echo. The vines are still, the chickens sleep. Even Gregor, infamous sentinel of the goat pen, lies curled beneath a cartwheel, unmoving. And you lie still. The weight of the day has lifted, piece by piece, your armor, your belt, your shield, your thoughts. Only breath remains. Soft, slow, sure. You feel the cool of the earth beneath you, the rhythm of your own heart syncing with the pulse of the camp. For once no one needs you to march, to guard, to lift, to fight. You simply are. A Roman soldier, wrapped in the hush of twilight, blanketed by starlight and dreams. The gods above, whether real or remembered, watch over you in silence. Mars rests his sword, Jupiter turns his gaze elsewhere. Even Fortuna, fickle goddess of chance, seems to smile and step away. Tonight belongs to rest. You let your mind wander into olive groves and cool rivers, into fig trees and warm bread, into laughter and morning light. Let it drift, let it soften, let it go, because for now you are safe, and tomorrow can wait. Sleep well, soldier of Rome, you've earned it.